Hello, tonight on Business Live, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to present mid-year budget on July 27. We will tell you more. Inflation for the month of June increases marginally to 42.5%, triggered by rising food prices.
Food inflation for the month of June 2023 stood at 54.2% relative to non-food inflation 53.4%. This signifies about a more than 20 percentage point difference between food and non-food inflation for the month of June 2023.
Later on the Joy Business Van today, we conclude our series on Adansi Travels, which is marking 10 years in business. We explore how the travel agency is diversifying its operations. We have details of these and many others lined up for you. Please. Thanks so much for joining us. I am Pius Kojobaka. Let's now settle for the details. And the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is expected to present the mid-year review of budget estimates on Thursday, July 27. This is what Joy Business has picked up from persons working on the presentation. Now, what are some of the expectations from the budget, particularly after government secured a $3 billion IMF deal? Let's go on Zoom and engage financial economist Professor Lord Mensah on this. Professor Mensah, good to know you are on. Generally, what are your expectations when it comes to the fiscal targets? Do you expect a major review with the IMF program in place?
We expect a major review because if you look at the 2023 budget relative to what is happening on the grounds, clearly you come to understand that the budget is way completely deviated from what exactly is happening on the ground. So I'm expecting a major review, and also looking at the financing sources being quite limited now. If you look, the various sources of finance. Now we're looking at taxes and then possibly short-term financing. The long-term financing is no more, and then also being, hold up at the Eurobond market. I'm expecting that, at least we'll limit our, expenditure on the capital, investment, because as we speak now, government can only raise money on short-term basis, and you can't use short-term, funds for long-term investment. So I'm expecting major review, and a review that will reflect, the IMF, deal.
Do you also look forward to a supplementary budget to allow government to spend more, or expect moderate expenditure, as you rightly mentioned, in the next half of the year?
The question is, if government wants to spend more, where are they going to get the money from? I don't think there's some money available anywhere apart from treasury bills. The bonds that we restructured, the market for it is quite, low. And so looking at how the investor confidence has, reduced, and the horizon of the investor has reduced to short term, I'm expecting that government will stick to that and then look at how we can survive recurrently, and then possibly think about, long term in the next budget or the next 2 years budget. So from where I sit, I don't expect any review that will call for extra expenditure, but rather probably on the revenue side, it is expected that there will be some recalibrations. There are some agitations and calls that the COVID levy should be removed, and I foresee that it will be recalibrated to another, form of tax. So because government needs money as we speak now. So these are the expectations on the targets when it comes to the fiscal side of our budget.
It's good you've mentioned revenue, and we know that taxes have become a major issue. And there has been concern about the COVID levy, which you rightly mentioned that it must be scrapped. But in a way, government would need to map up or improve upon its revenue generation. Do you anticipate new taxes to be introduced?
Yes, it may not necessarily be new taxes, because looking at the squeeze as far as a typical business and then the ordinary Ghanaian is concerned, and looking at how inflation has wiped out purchasing power, introducing more taxes will further deepen, the wiping out of, disposable income. So existing tax will be maintained, but then I'm looking at the possibility of recalibrating the COVID, levy.
Do you think it's about time we review our revenue targets?
Yes, revenue target as we speak now. See, the economy is not functioning as expected because you can only, improve or introduce revenue when you have a functional economy, an economy where the agents are active, businesses and then, individuals. But then a situation where the economy is moved, dominated by government activities, introducing, more taxes, can be a problem. So from where I sit, I think we should hold on with that and then possibly look at how we can manage with the existing, taxes that we have.
A quick take on the 42.5% inflation rate, which we just recorded. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, inflation, as we speak now, looking at the kind of IMF program we have, I see fighting inflation to be difficult in the sense that we have one hand of the program telling government to raise revenue through taxes, and whatever the case may be, these revenue taxes, business will not absorb them. Business are going to pass them through to the consumer and thereby building up into prices. On one side, it is expected that government increase, monetary policy to tighten, the monetary, space so that they can control inflation. So you see, two, opposite indicators fighting inflation. And if we don't take care, inflation fighting is going to be a stalemate, and bringing it down will be difficult. So I'm not surprised because we've had some tariff adjustment, which is also going to be passed through to the consumer. So the expectations of some of these, taxes, and then also the increase in tariffs and all those, the build-up of prices that we see on the market. And so from where I sit, I think we should take it easy. As far as the projections of our economic indicators are concerned.
Very well. Thank you very much, Professor Lord Mensah, for your time here on Business Live. A while longer on the economy, because the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobnenim, has challenged policymakers to take a critical look at factors contributing to the increase of food inflation. Well, food inflation has consistently seen an increase of 20 percentage points compared to non-food inflation. Now, speaking to journalists after announcing the inflation for June, which increased marginally to 42.5% compared to 42.2% in May, Professor Nim said that prices of common staples, such as vegetables, could continue to record an increase over the period. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, food inflation remains high at 54.2%, higher than the national average, with imported products increasing by 43.8%, while locally produced items saw a rate of 36.2%. Prices of vegetables such as tomatoes saw an increase in average prices. Professor Samuel Kobnenim is government statistician.
We keep on recording a widening of the gap between food and non-food inflation in the last 3 months. On a month-on-month basis, we also record a 1.3 percentage point between food inflation and non-food inflation, with food inflation June 2023 standing at 3.9% and non-food inflation month-on-month 2.6%. We continue to see the dominance of imported items in the consumer price index and rate of inflation. Imported items for the month of June 2023 stood at 44.5% relative to locally produced items 35.9%, indicating about a 9.0 percentage point difference between imported items and locally produced items.
Reacting to the development, senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seram Kawo, blamed the phenomenon on demand and supply, arguing there must be a concerted effort in addressing the rise in food inflation.
There is demand for food, and once there is demand and supply is low, the prices of the food will be very high. what do we do to ensure that we have these things available from time to time? That is where government policies come in, to ensure that the food that we need in the country are provided through the agricultural system. The Ministry of Agriculture, the various centers that are responsible for the growing and manufacturing of food items have to come together to put up a policy. Over time, when this is not done, we are going to struggle.
He however warned that if this trend continues, it could have serious implications for the central bank in controlling inflation.
If we continue to talk the way we do, it's going to affect everything in the country. We need actions than words. If we don't put into place various actions to ensure that the right things are done, we are going to stay where we are. And so we need government to act immediately on some of these concerns. And government needs to be proactive, not reactive to issues.
Meanwhile, Northeast region recorded the highest rate of food inflation with a figure of 79%, while the Ahafo region recorded the lowest rate of 40.9%. All right, so let's explore this further. Joining me on phone is Executive Secretary of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Kariwe. Edward, grateful you could join me on Business Live. Now, the data released by the Statistical Service shows a consistent rise in food inflation compared to non-food inflation. What, in your view, could be contributing to this?
Well, good evening to you, all of you, and good evening to our listeners. I think that the Statistical Service figures, which are giving a certain trend, is unusual, and it's so because our economy is not in normal times. Under normal circumstances, as we have exited the lean season, that is between February to March and April, then food inflation should be coming down because there will be the southern part of the country around this time begins to harvest. That is July, August, begin to harvest. And that is supposed to bring down food prices and food inflation. Unfortunately, we are rather seeing food inflation going up. It tells us that there are certain factors we have not considered, and that it also tells us that the damage, excuse me to put it that way, the damage or the harm that we have done to agriculture is deeper than we think it is. You know, and that's why we are unable to understand why food inflation should still be high. And you can see that the government statistician is worried about it, and he thinks that policymakers must investigate the real causes of food inflation going up, when in that fact it should be coming down. So it's a worry for all of us, but it is a manifestation of the fact that we have not handled agriculture well. And it's not just because we have not handled agriculture well, it's just that we have allowed a bigger distraction to it. For instance, vegetables, as we're talking about, they are very delicate area of agriculture. And if you see the way we are not managing our land well, for instance, you see the effect of galamsey everywhere. Look, the immediate subsector that will be seriously affected will be vegetable subsector. And even you can see that tree crops are not spared. You know, rubber is not spared, palm oil trees are not spared, cocoa trees are not spared. How much more these delicate areas of agricultural production? So it's not unusual, but it's only a wake-up call for us to do a deeper assessment of the challenges within the agricultural sector.
But Edward, we've heard government publish that the agricultural sector has received lots of funding in the past 6 years under the Planting for Food and Jobs program. Why, in your view, are we not seeing its impact on food inflation?
Well, I think that we should not just look at funding alone, because if you give funding, we shouldn't be And that is even the point that we need to investigate why it is so. Because you can't spend so much money and we are getting the results we are getting today. You know, it makes us to be really convinced that we need to investigate the matter further. But what it means is that the fundamentals of agriculture is being touched now. Look, sometimes when we are talking about agriculture, we need to talk with it with passion. If you look at the massive destruction that is being done for agriculture today, in the next 5 years, 10 years, if we are not able to abate the rate at which the destruction is going, of course, there will virtually not be agriculture, and our problems will be exacerbated. So, for me, I think that we are really not doing the things that we need to do. The fundamentals of agriculture is seriously touched in this country, is destroyed in this country.
One other key thing is we see that prices of fish keeps surging in the data. Do you think that enough attention has not gone into fish production?
You see, fish generally, as it's produced in Ghana, is produced coming from the natural sources, from rivers, from the sea, and so on. That is how we get our fish. Even though we are now making efforts to have fish ponds where we can deliberately breed fish for ourselves, that has not yet caught up with us. And if you see the level of destruction that we have done to our rivers, if you take the cumulative effect, you will see that the opportunity for fish production has been drastically curtailed by this effect. All our rivers, except a major few of them, who still have marine life, who still have aquatic life existing, most of them have been, they are just dead. And so you can't get fish from all those ones. So cumulatively, it has a serious effect on our fish production. And it's not surprising for me that we are having fish production declining.
I see. Edward, in a minute, we do know that come 27th July, we are to see Finance Minister present the media review. Your expectations, quickly.
Well, he's required to do so because it's part of the requirements of him to do so. But I don't expect much from it because the country is already challenged. And what is a budget? A budget is about how you are going to disburse your finances and so on. And if you don't have finances, then what are you going to use to prop up the budget? What I'm not seeing is that it will come to change the current budget that we have, the 2023 budget. So we expect to see what will happen.
Edward Kariwe, we are grateful for your time. He's the Executive Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. Remember, you're still watching Business Live, still to come on the Joy Business Van today. We conclude our series on Adansi Travels, which is marking 10 years in business. We explore how the travel agency is diversifying its operations after this break. That's it for the bulletin. I am Pius Kojobaka. Let's connect same time tomorrow. Bye.